Hello everybody. Hi. Thanks for making time out of your busy schedules. I hope I can make it worth your time. First of all, thanks to the team for putting this interaction together. Okay, so talking about my journey, and now that I have a captive audience, let's talk about my journey. I've secured 34th rank this time. I did my BA honors and MA in political science, and my optional was also political science. This was my 5th attempt. Before this, I cleared prelims in 2019. Subsequently, I couldn't clear prelims in 2020 and 2021. This year, thankfully, things work out for the better. So I have seen the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, and I've learned some lessons along the way. I'd like to share it with you guys. Hopefully, you can make the most out of it. Firstly, whenever we are talking about UPSC, in my personal opinion, there are certain things that I've come to learn. And when we are talking about this exam, there are two aspects to this exam. First is the practical and the pragmatic part of it, a list of things that you must do, right? Like for instance, there are answer writing, there are mock tests, then there is a certain book list, which we will talk about, which we will share about, which I'll share with you. But the more important part, which I think I have come to realize over the course of my preparation, is the philosophical part of it. The why of it. Why is a particular question being asked, or why is a particular paper being introduced in UPSC, and what are the expectations of that paper? Since you are preparing for this examination, I'm sure you have a lot of trust in this examination. You think it's worth your time. So, and the institution itself, UPSC, has put a lot of mind and thought in it. And the way this whole exam is being conducted, there are certain values they are looking for. And what is the purpose of a paper? I think we'll keep discussing it along the way, which will help you get some clarity on as to how to approach a paper once you start studying it. What are the exact things that you should be looking for when you're studying a paper? And more importantly, you will not probably get upset. Then you will not be getting upset the way in which this prelims was held. I think it was a big shocker for a lot of us. For those appearing now, so thankfully I'm out of the loop now. So yeah, I never revisited that trauma. So yes, having said that, one more thing that I'd like to add is that UPSC is not a test of intellect. It's a test of certain values which they're looking for, and these values are not definitive. Right, no one is perfect. There's no one perfect human being. We are all work in progress. So that is why nobody can have these values in perfection. But I believe you should try to inculcate some of these values. And once you start inculcating these values, you will automatically be able to clear the examination, and it will not become a challenge for you. For instance, if I talk from my personal experience, I cleared prelims, and then I failed prelims twice. Right, and now this year I've cleared the examination again. I've cleared the examination. So I've seen the highs and the lows. So there is a certain sense of equanimity in you. You should tackle the examination with a certain sense of equanimity, and equanimity is a value that UPSC is also looking for in its officers. Right, the people who have gotten through. So that is why they have a filtration mechanism in place. Instead of choosing a particular set of people, UPSC keeps eliminating, right? So that it can get people with most number of those values, and those values are something that we keep working on. And before we start discussing the papers and what needs to be done in all these papers, you must understand that UPSC is just an exam. Don't make it bigger than that. It anyway is pretty goddamn tough, right? There are no two ways about it. It stretches out over a year. It's going to take up a lot of time of your important age of your lives. So it's anyway going to be very demanding. Don't make it bigger than it already is. Right, so you must treat it as an exam. Say for instance, one of the questions that keeps coming my way a lot is, how did you keep yourself going? This was your 5th attempt and all that. Because I did not stop living my life, right? I was doing a lot of other things as well. I was living my normal life, enjoying the process. So do not let the exam get to you at any point of time, which is very, very important, I feel. And in these 2 years, it took me 2 years and 2 failed prelims to realize that it's your mental health and physical health which matters the most above everything else. So prioritize yourself. The exam will automatically take care of itself. You just prioritize yourself, right? So first things first, let's start with prelims. Also, just to make this talk more structured, we are going to be discussing prelims, then mains, and finally interview. But UPSC preparation cannot happen in silos. All of them are deeply interconnected, right? So you can have, you can borrow your knowledge from any part of the process. It's all interconnected, interdimensional, interdisciplinary. If you start trying to prepare for one particular stage of the examination, you are bound to get stuck in the next stage of the examination. So you must think of the exam as an organic entity, जिसके सारे हिस्से जुड़े हुए हैं एक दूसरे से, and it will, if once you start treating it as a joint entity, आप सारी levels की एक जैसी ही preparation करेंगे, कोई substantially different नहीं होगी किसी stage की preparation. Only thing that will differ is कि किस stage की क्या requirements हैं, right? So starting with prelims, prelims has gotten very tricky over the past 2-3 years especially. It's a tricky business, the cutoffs are going down. I think the biggest value that is being checked in prelims is that of temperance, nerves, patience, because all your preparation boils down to those 2 hours effectively. Mains में फिर भी you have 7 subjective papers, right? आपका कहीं ऊपर हुआ कहीं नीचे, you can take care of it. You can make up for it in another question, but prelims is a place where all your preparation, जो 1 साल से कर रहा है, 2 साल से कर रहा है, 3 साल से कर रहा है, it all boils down to those 2 hours, and you have to get it right in those 2 hours. Or questions, I think, are being made purposefully so out of the box, so tricky, कि it is not just a matter of whether you know it or not. Do you have the nerves to sit through the exam and address them? As far as the book list is concerned, the book list is pretty standard. You already know the book list, but the nature of the exam has changed to such an extent कि simply knowing facts will not work. UPSC के लिए कभी भी simply knowing facts never worked, but अभी वो it has gone to the next level. पूरा exam preparation is analytical in nature. It is completely analytical in nature. So for instance, let's start with history. If you're studying history, you will have to invest your time and energy into understanding a particular time. आपको थोड़ा सा visualize करना पड़ेगा. अपने you'll have to transport yourself to those times. थोड़ा सा सोचना पड़ेगा कि what was life like back then, right? So that you can make informed judgments during prelims. That is the main purpose of having an analytical bent of mind. कि आप actually, instead of just mugging up facts, you are actually spending a lot of time trying to understand what the life and times of that society was like. Also, like I mentioned earlier, कि UPSC की तैयारी silos में नहीं होती. वैसे भी our lives does not exist in silos, right? We live in a system where we are impacted by different elements. There are social realities, there are economic realities, political realities, cultural realities. हर चीज़ हमें impact करता है. तो जब हम किसी भी चीज़ को पढ़ें, whenever we are reading something, we should try to approach it from diverse perspectives. So for instance, if you're talking about, let's say modern times, then we should be able to analyze कि social life कैसी थी, economic life कैसी थी, cultural life कैसी थी, to the best of our knowledge, right? In this case, I think Bipin Chandra is the best book to go to, because if you have read the book, or if you haven't, and if you're about to read the book, he tells the whole of history like a story, right? Modern Bipin Chandra, it narrates to you like a story. And for that matter, all NCRTs. History, if you read the NCRTs, it is like a story that is being told to you instead of a particular set of facts. For instance, I will refrain from taking any names, but there is a book which covers the whole spectrum. I never read that book, right? So, because it is a collection of facts, I wanted to see the whole picture. And if you look at the questions from history section, what you'll realize is that they are forcing you, apart from the ones where they ask you what does a particular word mean, right? What does a particular word mean in Vedic literature and stuff like that? That if you've read, only then you can do. Otherwise, the questions are primarily those where you have to analyze and you have to make an informed guess. Definitively, आपको पता होगा is highly unlikely. So, and that you can do only once you have transported yourself to those times, have given some serious thought to what life was like during that time. Well, other important pillars that you need to do for prelims is geography. Geography is NCRT, I think. You should start with the NCRT, 11th and 12th NCRT. And then if you find the time and if you have the comfort, you should substantiate it with GC Leong. But a lot of times, even GC Leong is not very necessary for prelims because questions are particularly map-based, most of them, for prelims, which I'm sure if you just keep following the current affairs, you'll be able to solve most of them. As for then, there's economy. Economy, I would say there's standard material available. Just take any of it. You can take any standard economy pe material, but you need to keep refreshing your memory with the newspaper. So everything that's in the newspaper, Google a lot. I relied on Googling a lot of terms. For instance, if you're talking about Forex, right? Again, let's talk about economy. When we're talking about economy, you have to be analytical in mind. Say, for instance, some time back, just knowing what Forex includes would have worked. But now, just knowing what Forex includes will not work. You will have to know when Forex dwindles, how does it impact the Indian economy? What are the reasons? How is it going to impact our exporters? And this can happen only if you have had a wider perspective about things. And if you're thank you. I just need water. Thank you. Right. So if you have a wider perspective on things, only then you will be able to solve those questions. For me, it was very simple. I always stuck with 4 to 5 pillars that I wanted to do very properly for prelims. That was history, geography, economy, culture. Polity, obviously Lakshmikant is the holy gospel. Everybody has to read it. Jitni baar padhe, utna acha hai. And then at the same time, I would say do not restrict yourself to any of these books. These are good starting points. Once you have finished that book, I would say revise them. And before I forget, one important thing is keep your resources minimum. One thing I think you'll realize during the course of this talk is that I had the most minimum resources imaginable, and I still got a very decent rank with it. So instead of trying to maximize your resources, keep your resources to a minimum. उतना ही resources के साथ ज़्यादा engage करिए. Say for instance, you can be interdisciplinary, right? तो आपके new set of, अगर आपने कुछ information पाई है, इकट्ठा किया, you've acquired some new information, उसी information को use करके same text को फिर से revisit करिए. If you revisit the same text again and again, you will automatically see the text will reveal itself more to you. Instead of just keep maximizing your resources, that will help nobody. And the nature of the exam is such that you will always feel that you haven't done enough. Abhi bhi after clearing the exam also, if I'm coming here, I feel that I've not done enough. Right? I feel that yaar, mujhe thoda sa, maybe if I would have read more, I would have been able to tell you guys something little more. Right? So there's always going to be a feeling about not having done enough. So you will have to back yourself. You gotta back yourself, and you don't have to get 100% marks. There's a reason that you'll be in you'll get good ranks with 50% marks as well. So do not strive for perfection. Perfection is unattainable. Just keep doing your bit one day at a time and leave it at that. Back yourself with minimum information that you have and try to approach questions from a very logical frame of mind. The nature of the exam is very democratic in nature. It is not pandering to a particular class or people who have the resources to, let's say, come to Delhi and prepare for the services. It's a very democratic exam. Anybody can take it. So सबसे minimum resource क्या हो सकता है किसी इंसान के पास? That's a newspaper. A newspaper can be easily available to anybody across the country. And if you use the newspaper properly, I think with a curious mind frame where you keep trying to know more and more about things, I think that will suffice. So the pillars that I was talking about was history, geography, then polity, Lakshmikant, economy, culture. There are only 2 sources which will suffice for both mains and prelims. This is NCRT Fine Arts and CCRT, the CCRT handout. I think that is it. There is no I personally feel there's no reason to study more than that. Then apart from culture, the environment has become a big source, a big fodder for UPSC, which is, again, if you look at the philosophy behind it, it only makes sense, right? Climate change is the biggest challenge that we face right now. It is the biggest reality that is impacting our lives. So to expect questions from environment is not surprising. And all over the world, people are talking about environment. We are trying to provide solutions. So environment, agriculture, we are a primarily agrarian society. So expecting questions from environment and agriculture should not be shocking at all. For that, I refer to Shankar IAS material, I remember. Yes, that is the best, I think, go-to. Apart from that, newspaper is going to be your main bread and butter. You can also try out Down to Earth. The only issue is that it comes out every 15 days. So it becomes a little too hectic after a point of time to keep following it rigorously. But even if you read like 6-7 issues, you will start getting a sense of how environment happens, or you'll get a sense of things that are in news, which can become important question points. So apart from these things, it was the newspaper, the current affairs, which forms the other major part of your preparation. Now there are two ways to do it. One is the right way to do current affairs, which is you read newspaper throughout the year. It's a good thing if you do it and you're able to memorize it. But for others, you have PT 365 and other such initiatives by a lot of other coaching institutes, where what you can do is you can pick any of it up and you can go through it. It's pretty exhaustive in nature. I personally, because there were times when I could not read the newspaper, or I missed out on some important news, so I had to go to a monthly series, because I could not take that risk, right? So for instance, I did not read the newspaper for some 10 odd days, and then I would have missed out on something, and that was asked in the prelims, so that was not worth the risk. So just pick up any monthly that suits you, and I would recommend to reread over and over again. One thing I've come to realize is that a lot of people read it once. I don't think that will serve your purpose, because it's a lot of information that is being downpoured on you, right? So it's a collection of all the news that has happened over the year. So if you just read it once, you'll naturally not be able to recall everything. So I would recommend you read it a couple of times, read it twice or thrice, and then automatically your mind will start filtering out the important current affairs. You will get a sense of it. Simultaneously, if you're also solving previous year question papers. So I wouldn't recommend solving 2 old papers anyway. Just solve the last 5 years question paper. That would be more than enough. There's no need to solve the past 10-year question papers as well. So just diligently solve the last 5 years previous year question paper, and read the monthly magazines for the yearly summation of current affairs properly, and I think that will do it for the current affairs section. As far as prelims is concerned, the most important part about prelims is holding on to your nerves, and then the second half of it, and yes, one most important thing is that you need to take a lot of mocks, and that too in a simulated environment. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made in my previous 2 prelims, where I could not pass the examination, was I did not do it in a simulated manner. So you need to do it properly. You need to do it in 2 hours. You need to do it like you are sitting in an exam setting. If you do it casually, then on the final day you will be under a lot of pressure, and it will be difficult. So the best thing to do is, if you sit down at 9:30 itself, the time when the exact time of the examination, do it in the morning, so that your mind is also physiologically most active at that point of time, right? Apart from the fact that you're doing it in a simulated manner, I would recommend at least take any coaching institute's mocks, do 1 complete series properly from cover to cover. And when you're doing a mock, first you take the mock in a simulated manner, do it in the morning time when you'll be having the exam otherwise also. Then once you've done, get your score and spend a lot of time analyzing what you've done. Over the course of time, you should be making substantial progress. If you're not making, then you should really revisit what is the reason that you're not making progress. But mocks are something that are the most important thing. You can read n number of books and you can prepare as much as you want, but if you are not solving mocks, and that too in a simulated manner, there's a high probability that you'll not be able to clear prelims. This is a mistake I personally made. I personally learned from it. I solved mocks in a simulated manner. It helped me. Otherwise, the choice is completely yours. This is what I felt. Then the second half, CSAT. CSAT again has become more and more tricky over the years. You will have to identify your strengths and weaknesses. In my personal case, I realized that my strength was comprehension. And so firstly, I sat down to solve all the comprehension questions, and say there are some 25 to 27 odd comprehension questions, and the comprehension passages are pretty long. So a lot of times what happens is people who are doing comprehension first, they get a little unnerved because almost more than an hour has passed away and you have only done, let's say, 25, 27 odd questions. So I would request you to, what I would request is that you identify what your strengths and weaknesses are. The beauty of UPSC is that it is probably the only exam in the world which celebrates individuality. There are no right ways to do it. You can have your way, I can have mine, and yet both of us will be there. That's the beauty of this exam, right? So you can have your own individual preferences about things, but once you have those individual preferences, you should be able to identify your strengths and weaknesses. For instance, I was very clear about the fact that my strength lay in my comprehension skills. So I sat down with comprehension. I solved all the comprehension questions, and that meant that I had spent almost 1 hour 15 minutes in just doing 25, 27 questions. But the idea is to pass the examination. I did not let it get to me. In the next 45 minutes, I just solved some 10 or 13 odd reasoning and maths questions, and I just attempted 40, I remember, which is, I think, more than enough to help you sail through. So otherwise, I'm sure if there's an issue you're facing in both maths as well as comprehension, then it is something that you need to address. CSAT cannot be taken any more lightly. I've seen a lot of people clearing GS and then flunking in CSAT. So it's really not worth it. Give it the respect it deserves, and I'm sure that will not be an issue. As far as mains answer writing is concerned, that's the next stage of it, which is the most important stage, as you know. This is where it matters the most. When we are talking about mains answer writing, I would like to particularly focus on 3 papers, which I like to call them the swing papers, right? Akin to the swing votes in elections, there are swing papers, that is essay, then there is ethics, and then your optional. These 3 papers are the swing papers in the sense that these are the papers where you see a lot of variance in marks amongst the selected candidates also. Right, and one of the reasons why people are not able to clear mains is either they've done really badly in essay, ethics, or they're optional, right? And one of the reasons people get a decent rank is because they've done well in essay, ethics, or optional. GS, more or less everybody is writing the same answers. Cloudburst पे आप नहीं innovative हो सकते हैं, right? मतलब you can try a bit, but there are limits to how innovative you can get with Cloudburst. But the possibilities are huge when you're writing an essay on poets are the best legislators or stuff like that, you know. So essay is something, so talking about essay is something which I feel cannot be learnt in a day. It is something that you pick up over the course of a couple of years, right? Having said that, the best way to address essay is to widen your perspective about things. Once you start, which is actually the essence of all papers in UPSC, the wider your perspective will be, the more comfortable you will be with the essay paper. So first of all, if you are not able to do a lot of side reading because of the preparation, at least try to read articles on the net, right? At least read new articles, visit websites, visit blogs, which are writing something out of the world, right? You're watching a lot of movies. Do something on the side which will help you expand your cultural horizons, which will help you know something apart from just the curriculum that you're reading, so that you can come up with diverse perspectives. You can approach an issue from diverse perspectives. In essay particularly, what you should do is then this one is the more route where you keep reading more and you keep building a vocabulary about things, you keep knowing more about things. The other way to do it is, say for instance, there are notes by Anudeep Durishetty sir. I think they're easily available. तो वो आपको एक flow बता देंगे, right? So if we are not able to do extremely well in essay, we have to contain our damage in essay. कि essay हमें at least नीचे नहीं लेके जाए. तो that flow will be given to you through that उन notes. I just referred to those notes and it helped me get that flow. उससे क्या है कि वो आपको आई थिंक इट हैज़ इनफ एग्जाम्पल्स टू शो यू कि किसी भी इशू को कैसे सोशियो इकोनॉमिक पॉलिटिकल डायमेंशन से, अलग अलग डायमेंशन से आप उसे एड्रेस करें, कैसे वो अलग अलग स्टेक होल्डर्स को कोई चीज़ इम्पैक्ट करता है. सो फ्लो एटलीस्ट वहाँ से लें और आइडियाज़ अपना साइड बाय साइड रीडिंग करके उन आइडियाज़ पे वर्क करते रहें. एंड आई वुड से फील फ्री टू बोरो फ्रॉम ऑल स्फीयर्स ऑफ लाइफ. We live in a society, we are seeing a lot of interactions happening between people, we see a lot of movies, we feel free to borrow from different dimensions of life. अगर आप कोई पिक्चर भी देख रहे हैं and you think it's making a relevant point, why not use that point in your answers. There is no one right way to write an answer. So you should try to borrow a lot of references from real life, books, movies, sports, whatever, right? Next is GS paper 1, which is history, culture, geography and society. So as for history and culture is concerned, again I would say just stick to Bipin Chandra, and for culture CCRT, NCRT and CCRT. You also have world history, and from what I understand most of you will be writing your prelims next year, right? In 2024. So there's a book by Norman Lowe called Mastering World History. Read it as a story, don't see it as a burden, right? If you read it as a story, it's going to benefit you in a lot of ways. That is one book that really enriched me, was because apart from the fact that एक बार आपने पढ़ लिया, you have a complete sense of world history. So then you don't really need to do world history again. Secondly, उससे क्या होगा? For instance, if you know world history, you can borrow a lot of examples from world history to write in your essays, right? So आपने थोड़ी साइड बाय साइड रीडिंग की. इट इज़ नॉट ओनली डूइंग टेकिंग केयर ऑफ द सिलेबस, इट इज़ ऑल्सो हेल्पिंग यू बिल्ड अ नॉलेज बेस, राइट? सो वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री वहाँ से कर लिए. कीप इट मिनिमल. आई जस्ट रेड बिपिन चंद्रा. Apart from that, when you're talking about mains, I think one of the most important things to do while mains is again test series. Cannot stress enough on the importance of test series. तो जितना आपका syllabus यहाँ से cover हो जाए. History, Bipin Chandra, culture, I told you, geography with NCRT and GC Leong. जितना syllabus cover हो जाए, that's fine. Apart from that, just join a test series, and rest of the questions will be covered in जो भी mains की test series है. So once you take, like for instance, I took 2 test series mains के time पे. तो once I felt कि I did not have enough time to revisit all the books and everything, I just went through all the mock questions, mock answers. तो उसमें आपको probable questions भी आपके revise हो जाते हैं, और जो part of the syllabus missing होता है, that also gets revised. While talking about mains, I think one other important thing that needs to be kept in mind is that there are 3 or 4 parts to every paper. पर इसमें history है, culture है, geography है, society है. So equal importance should be given to all parts of the paper. What happens is people tend to reduce history, सिर्फ history ही समझ लेते हैं या सिर्फ geography ही समझ लेते हैं. While in reality you get a lot of questions from society as well, right? Similarly in GS paper 3, it is not just economy. It is economy, technology, disaster preparedness, then there's environment. So give internal security. Give enough importance to all the subsects. क्योंकि at the end of the day, for instance, in my GS paper 3, let's say my economy was weak, but I did other things properly, right? Economy, I could not do justice to economy properly, but since I had done other things properly, I was able to get decent marks by GS3 standards. I don't think anybody gets good marks in GS3, but by GS3 standards, I got decent marks. Similarly, in GS paper 2, again the book that you refer to is Polity, is by Lakshmikant. Keep revisiting the text and keep doing mock. Once you keep solving the test series, you will have a lot of mock questions, all the probable questions that you can address. Governance is a big part of it, so you can just pick important terms. Once you pick important terms from the syllabus that you think that you don't have notes for, just a social audit हो गया, for instance, your governance, and आप Google पे just write that topic PDF एक ढूंढ लीजिए, you will easily find a 20-30 page PDF which will give you enough information about that topic. If you get a question on social audit, let's say 2 या 3 page आपको लिखना है, there's only so much you can write, and if you've read a 20 page PDF, that is more than enough to answer that question, right? So for instance, while preparing for my interview, मेरे DAF में मैंने एक international symposium attend किया था governance पे. So I wanted something to read on governance. So while I was looking it up, there's a nice PDF, I believe by Vision itself, on governance. So it's a 100-page PDF. Just go through it. Your governance is taken care of. You don't need to go above and beyond it. Just make sure, when I'm saying mains mein, just make sure that you give enough importance to all the subtopics. Do not leave out the subtopic completely, चाहे आप उसको exam के दिन ही सुबह देख के ही चले जाएं. If communalism is mentioned, if regionalism is mentioned, try googling it, find a small PDF, 10 to 20 page PDF, that will help you understand what the issue at hand is. So that आप on the spot भी innovate करके, once you know the issues के around, you can make a couple of points, right? So this is how I think you should do GS 1, 2 and 3. For GS 4, again जो swing paper है, ethics, which has become a ethics के लिए answer writing is very important, because ethics paper is very, very lengthy. I myself missed out on a case study. I could not finish, attempt also one case study. So that is how important answer writing is for ethics. Ethics is going to be a very, very lengthy paper. So a lot of answer writing is important for ethics. How do you go about it? There are, first is the philosophy bit of ethics, right? Where you understand all the philosophies of ethics. And then there's the emotional intelligence part, and finally is the case study part. So you take all the philosophies, you get notes for all the philosophy. You get, I think there's lexicon, and personally I refer to class notes. So you take class notes and whatever notes you want, you can take lexicon, and there are other lot of material in the market. But just get one and trust yourself. With ethics, again, it's not science that you're talking about. It's ethical dimensions that we have to address. And trust yourself. I'm sure you have a lot of ethical positions on things, right? So what you need to do is, there's also this amazing website. I'm forgetting the name of this university. I believe it's University of Syracuse or something. But just look it up. They have a dedicated school for ethics. So there they discuss all ethical dimensions of various issues. For example, gun laws, abortion, and stuff like that. So ethics may just get any basic material, do your philosophy, do your emotional intelligence part. You need to understand what an attitude is, what is empathy, what is self-regulation, self-awareness. All these things, you take this knowledge, and then you start doing case studies from now on. And you start applying as many dimensions as you can to these case studies, right? Ethics kya hai? Ethics is basically an art. Humans are capable, humans have this amazing capability to decide between right and wrong. We are probably the only species who has the ability to reflect on their actions, right? That's what makes humans special. Morality ka concept hi kyun hai? Because we have the capacity to reflect on our actions. Other animals are instinctive beings. They act on impulse. We go back and think about the ethical dimensions of it, whether what we did was right or wrong. So what you, right or wrong आप कैसे decide करोगे? Once you are viewing something from a lot of perspectives. So you take an issue and you approach it from different perspectives. Approach it from utilitarian perspective, Kantian perspective, let's say hedonistic perspective, yeah, Aristotle की virtue theory hai. Things that you will be reading about, I think, in due course of time. These are philosophical. फिर emotional intelligence के उसमें कौन से issues हैं, कि अगर किसी ने कुछ गलत किया तो उसमें एम्पैथी की कमी थी, या उसमें अपने सेल्फ अवेयरनेस की कमी थी, सेल्फ रेगुलेशन की कमी थी. फॉर इंस्टेंस आई कुड नॉट क्लियर प्रीलिम्स बैक टू बैक फॉर 2 years. सेल्फ अवेयरनेस की कमी थी. आई वॉज नॉट willing to address the issues at hand. Maybe self regulation was an issue. I was not studying enough. Right, so like that you start applying these philosophies, this knowledge that you've gathered on real life situations. You start analyzing your own actions, and especially if you look at the mains paper this year. This year they again changed it a little. They're not even asking you on normal emotional intelligence concepts like they used to define empathy or give examples or talk about Mahatma Gandhi's important contributions to the field of or how has Kant influenced the field of philosophy. They are giving you random quotes. Now how do you interpret it? There are no right answers to that, right? You have gotten a quote, he is going to interpret it in a particular way, she is going to interpret it in a particular way, and you are completely free to be really brave, really radical. But जो भी आप stance ले रहे हो उसके पीछे कोई logic होना चाहिए. Tomorrow as potential bureaucrats also, once you make a decision, there is some sort of accountability, right? You have to provide a logic for the same. So आप case study में कहिए कि I'll do this and then provide a logic for the same because of this philosophy or because of this emotional intelligence की quality. Once you practice it enough, I think it will not become an issue. As far as the last stage is concerned, interview, this was my first interview. I got 206 this time. And I had a lot of fun in the interview, frankly. First of all, if you've reached that stage, that itself calls for celebration, right? So you shouldn't be too harsh on yourself. You've anyways done very well. You've reached that space. And it's a test of your personality. It's not a test of your knowledge. So it's not about what do you know or what do you not know. It's about how you respond to a particular situation. Right. So for instance, and one more thing that I would like to say is, I have mentioned it, and at the cost of some reiteration, I would say it. UPSC celebrates individuality. Do not be afraid of expressing your personalities or enlarging your personalities. There is no one right way to do it, but at the same time, I feel there is one. I get a sense of things कि people are एक sense of comfort भी बहुत peddle किया जाता है कि these things don't matter, your presentation does not matter, it's just your views that matter. I personally feel it's equally important to work on the presentation bit as well. अगर short, precise sentences that are grammatically correct will only help you. ठीक है, तो फिर if a lot of people think that language doesn't matter, yes, it doesn't matter to the extent that it will not determine whether you get in or not. But there is no harm in growth. In self-growth is one of the things that you should be striving for during the course of the preparation. कि जब आपकी preparation खत्म हो, you should have grown as a person. I personally felt that I had grown as a person because once the results came out, it was all, I was very happy and relieved and all that natural stuff, but at the same time I was also missing the process a little because it's a process of growth actually. So if you are working on it, so I don't want at least you all to have a sense of comfort about things. Be willing to work on yourself. कि अगर आपको grammatical issues हैं to address those grammatical issues. If you have problem expressing yourself in front of people, to try to express, take on challenges, I think. I am also particularly not very comfortable addressing a large crowd. I am doing it because it's a challenge I want to do, it's a challenge I want to take on, I want growth. So that is why you're doing. So do not restrict yourself. कि अरे language तो matter ही नहीं करती UPSC के exam में. Why does it not matter? It matters a lot. It matters कि आप introduction कैसा लिख रहे हैं, आप conclusion कैसा लिख रहे हैं. Are you able to think out of the box? Are you able to interrelate things? You will not be able to interrelate things until unless you increase the horizons of your reading. That is the only way to increase. Aap Sunday just don't read the newspaper. Look at all the books that are coming out. If you don't have time to read the book, at least you can read the book review. Then you will know that a particular type of book is in the market. You know? And if you read a book review, you'll automatically start getting different reviews and you will start having different stories on your feed, and try to surround yourself with good sort of information. I think that will really help you sail through. And at no point of time let the exam get bigger than what it is. It is just an exam. And it should help you grow. It shouldn't be otherwise. So I think I'll now open the floor to questions. If I've missed out on anything, you're more than welcome to ask.
Please raise your hands before asking the questions. The mic will be passed on to you and then ask. Okay.
Hi. You're audible. Yes.
Yeah. So congratulations on your achievement.
Thank you.
So kindly tell me how to prepare for the optional and how to choose optional.
Right. So as far as how many of you have decided on an optional, and how many of you have political science as an optional? Okay, great. So the very few people who have political science as an optional. I'll briefly talk about it. Well, as far as deciding the optional is concerned, I think the only reason why you should decide an optional, in my opinion, is when you really like that subject. The discipline excites you. You want to know more about it. You want to read more about concepts that it entails. This is the philosophical bit about it. You will have that gut feeling. Once you read something, you will really like a discipline in a way which is a little better than other things that you're reading or considering as your optional subjects. So listen to your gut. I would say that's the first thing. On a more marks, I don't feel are a very good way to decide what to choose as an optional, because people with obscure optionals and in optional subjects where people historically get lesser marks do exceedingly well if they have done their bit, right? So you will be able to do well in whichever optional you choose, provided you take care of two things. Firstly, you listen to your gut, you really like that subject, and to understand whether you like that subject or not, go through the syllabus properly. Go through the reading list that you'll have to go through. If you decide to do that subject, there will be a syllabus associated with it. There will be a certain reading list. See whether you like reading those books or not. For instance, if you want to choose political science, you might the political philosophy bit a lot, but you might not like the IR part. Or somebody might like the IR part a lot, but might not like the political philosophy part. So you will have to look at it holistically if the syllabus makes sense to you. And then you can also look at previous year questions, whether you're comfortable answering those questions or not. This is the more pragmatic way to analyze whether you should choose a particular optional or not. But the real reason why you should choose one is whether you like reading it or not. Once you read it, you'll have a gut feeling, okay, I should go with this optional. I really love reading it. So that is the only, I think, real way to determine what to choose as your optional subject. As far as political science as an optional subject is concerned, I would only say one thing. You should do part A of paper 1 very properly, which is the political theory bit, theory and thought, because it will provide you the tools to handle the whole of the discipline, right? Theory, thought or philosophers pe hi aage discipline. It is what forms the edifice of the discipline. उसी पे ही पूरा discipline खड़ा है, बाकी चीजें add-ons होती रही हैं. So once you have political philosophy, political theory at your command, you will be able to deal with any situation. What is the difference between optional subject and a GS subject? Optional subject checks your academic bent of mind. Why does UPSC still have an optional subject? The only reason it wants to check whether you have an academic bent of mind or not, right? As potential bureaucrats, you will need to have a certain amount of academic bent of mind, right? अगर आप agricultural field में revolution लाना चाहते हैं, it's the scientists who are making those progresses. आपको वो paper पढ़ के introduce करने होंगे on ground, right? So whether do you still have that academic bent of mind or not? That is the purpose of optional subject. और and this is how it is different from GS का paper. तो जब आप optional का paper लिखें तो use theory, जो उस डिसिप्लिन की थ्योरी है, उस डिसिप्लिन की फिलॉसफी है, टू आंसर इश्यूज. अगर आप इंडिया श्रीलंका इश्यूज पे बात कर रहे हैं, देन यू कैन नॉट जस्ट राइट अबाउट द नंबर ऑफ, यू कांट जस्ट राइट अबाउट हम्बन टोटा पोर्ट एंड ऑल. यू विल हैव टू लुक इट फ्रॉम बिगर थ्योरेटिकल मेन फ्रेम, थ्योरेटिकल लेंस से देखने की कोशिश करें. सो दैट इज माई बिट टू राइट. Right. For IR part, it's primarily the newspapers. Apart from that, there are a lot of good websites that you can visit. For instance, there's Center for Policy Research. There's Diplomat, Foreign Affairs. So these are all great websites. There are others also, but I think these would suffice. What you can do is, you can't actually read all the articles, but a lot of them have good abstract. जिसमें abstract में ही वो पूरे आर्टिकल का एसेंस आपको मिल जाता है. तो which really helped me understand a particular issue. For instance, if I'm reading about India-Afghanistan relations, so I would let's say open CPR, I would say that a couple of people have written on India-Afghan relations, and I would just read abstracts of 3 articles. Naturally, her scholar is trying to bring something new to the table. So he would have addressed it from humanitarian angle. Somebody would have viewed it from what will happen if the US, what will happen in the post-US era. what will happen if China starts putting boots on the ground, you know, so just like that. Yes. As far as the material for society is concerned, I think society I did from class notes primarily, and then like I mentioned, I would Google a topic and I would find a relevant PDF for it, and that would be it. IR I've told you. Internal security. Internal security, again, you can just go to the market, you can buy any. I think there is a book by a retired IPS or something. It's called Internal Security itself. You can buy that. That really helped me, I think, with internal security. Yes. Keep it minimal. That is my request. Internal security is again a very dynamic concept. For instance, if you're talking about coastal security, so there are certain organizations in place, which is the static part of it. Apart from that, if you Google coastal security, आपको सारे नए updated whatever the government is doing to ensure coastal security, you will find it out. If you just keep it static, what will happen is the book came out in 2018. So up till then, it has incorporated all the efforts that have been made to address coastal security. But coastal security is a dynamic thing. Every day something is changing. You have the string of pearls happening around you. You have new realities emerging. So what the government keeps responding, right, to these situations. So only if you keep reading articles and newspapers, I think you will be in a position to better address internal security questions. Anybody else?
Sir, there is a popular notes of PSIR. Sir, would that be enough, or we should also refer to reference books?
See, there's no such thing as enough, but I think it's essential, because that is one place where all the syllabus of political science has been collated and put into systematic 7 or 8 books, right? For you to go for reference books, it will be a little difficult. So first you finish that, and then I would recommend what you start doing is then you can start going for reference books to augment your knowledge. So a basic minimum you have done. After that, you can keep augmenting your knowledge. You can go for reference books. You can check out websites like Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. For paper 2, I already told these websites, Center for Policy Research, then there's Diplomat, Foreign Affairs, Foreign Policy. So you can augment your research, but I think that must be done. I personally feel it's good to always do those notes.
And sir, in paper 1, IGP section, Indian Government and Politics, sir, Lakshmikant would work?
No, it won't.
Then what else?
So, for Indian Government and Politics, you can try out BL Fardia is relatively decent, but it is a little thicker. So yeah, Lakshmikant is fine. What you can do is you can use the theories that you've read in the first part, and you can try to adopt them in the second part. In the second part, one more thing is that you will have to be a little more in-depth. So that I think can be addressed through a lot of test series. Once you take the test series and you have model answers. So all that is not there in Lakshmikant. That you can incorporate through model answers. Also, one more thing, paper is seen in totality, right? Once you see paper 1 of PSIR, it has the theory and thought, and the second section is Indian Government and Politics. I personally feel that it is very difficult to do justice to Indian Government and Politics from a theoretical perspective, from a discipline perspective, because then you will have to really get into the judgments of it and the nuances of it, and it will be difficult to apply theory. So I personally, and I was also more comfortable with the political philosophy bit of it. So I would recommend that you attempt most of the philosophy questions and theory questions, and try attempting the IGP questions lesser, because they're easier to do, but it's difficult to score marks in IGP part, I personally feel. Yes.
Sir, you talked about reread things.
Right.
Sir, how can I use it in newspaper? I can't reread and reread.
You don't have to reread the newspaper, obviously, but the thing is, if you look at newspapers, usually if you have an important issue, there are scholars writing on that from different perspectives. Say for instance, we were recently talking about the issue of granting marital status to same-sex marriages and stuff like that. So you will have continuously different sets of authors who keep writing on the issue. So if you keep reading different articles also, you're technically revisiting the issue, right? You're doing it from diverse perspectives. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
Sir, my question is here, sir. Sir, there are around 20 questions in each GS paper. So we should attempt how much questions accurately to get selected in the cutoff of GS paper?
All of them.
All of them, sir.
All of them, yes.
And there is no chance that if you're not knowing any of the question,
you'll have to do all of them. This is a basic. I mean, you should, whenever you're doing answer writing, and when I said you should do it in a simulated.
no, sir, accurate means I'm having enough of knowledge.
You
that
will not have the time to think about it. Once the time starts ticking, there is actually, you're always short on time.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So you can only try to do justice to as many questions as possible. Now, a lot of it will depend on how much you have practiced before coming into the exam hall. Right? So if most of the questions are questions that you have some sort of familiarity with, that is where your training will matter. Right? So if most of the questions, let's say even if 8 to 10 questions are those that you've already anticipated or practiced or have seen it in some form, then you will naturally be quicker with those questions.
Yes, sir.
Let's say, for instance, if you get a question on mantle plume in geography and you don't know what mantle plume is, naturally you'll just be drawing plate tectonics and whatnot, right? You will be inventing, you will be creative. But be creative, write something, struggle for those marks, right? Get 1 mark also, but you'll get a mark. So you should not leave any questions out. The attempt should be to do all of them.
Sir, but there is negative marking. I have heard, so if you attempt
in main, we're talking about mains, right?
Yes, sir.
There is no negative marking in mains.
Okay, sir.
All right. But until unless you write something really absurd, I mean, it really puts the examiner off.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hi.
Firstly, congratulations to you.
Thank you so
So
much.
my question is, can you tell us little bit about notes making? How to make notes?
Right. Notes making. So I did not do a lot of notes making because I would revisit things a lot. But notes making can be efficient to the point that you do not use it for conceptual clarity. Note making should serve the purpose of being able to recall factual things, I think. Whenever I would make notes also, what I would do is I would just write the factual things down. For instance, if I'm talking about GS1, you're talking about history. So, agar history mein, you can remember the concepts, right? For instance, if you're talking about Gupta times, there was increasing feudalism. It had lesser bureaucracy as compared to the modern times. There was a lot of autonomy, a particular class was not being taken care of. So, aapke conceptual clarity you should have about the era. Yeah, geography mein there should be certain sort of conceptual clarity, but agar aapko koi factual cheezein you find yourself unable to recollect and you feel are very, very important. For instance, if you're doing optional and there's a particular book that you want to talk about, अगर आप secularism कर रहे हैं और उसमें there's a particular book by Rajiv Bhargav or Ashish Nandi or whatever that you're not able to recall normally. So I think that is the purpose of note making according to me, that it should be able to so that you're able to realize factual things. Conceptual clarity तो आपको होनी चाहिए. That should be intrinsic to your nature.
And sir, what about the notes making of current affairs? Like we have to make notes or we will go with it?
Like I mentioned, if you are doing your daily thing properly, before you start note making, I would recommend that you'll go through previous year question papers very diligently. So if you go through the past 5, what the problem happens with people who are starting out now, कि आपको paper देख के लगता है everything is important, right? And at some level it is also, but from an exam perspective, you will have to start weeding out unnecessary information, right? So what happens is कि अगर आपने previous year question papers थोड़े अच्छे से देख लिए, so your mind is already in that frequency where it starts picking up information that is relevant to you. And you can start note making. That's always a good habit. It's always good to revisit your notes.
Okay, sir. So one more question, sir. How to stay motivated during this journey? Because in itself, it is very long journey.
Right.
So how to stay motivated? And before going to interview, its hesitation comes automatically.
Yeah,
So,
I
sir,
think
how to deal with
one
this?
step at a time. Interview की हम लोग बाद में बात करेंगे. Let's I think motivation is born out of two things. I think before starting this preparation itself, I spent a decent amount of time, I think a good 6 months before deciding to step into this process. So I think once I had realized why I wanted to do the services, I was very clear about the fact that I also had a lot of self-confidence. For a moment, I did not think that I will not be able to clear it. There were moments of doubt when I could not clear prelims, but I was sure that I had worked on the other aspects. Eventually, it's your mains and interview marks that count, right? So I was not able to clear prelims, but I was sure once I clear prelims, I will be able to do that. And also, there was some amount of self-awareness that I was being very lazy. I think I was being a shirker, I was procrastinating a lot, and I was not following the due process that was necessary for clearing prelims. I was told that I should be doing simulated mock tests, but I was not doing it. And after that, once I came back, I had no regret. I was like, I didn't study, I didn't get through, it only makes sense. Perfect justice. So once I did the process, then I got through. So I think motivation will come from within. That is the why of it is very important. Why do you want to get into the services? If you really like a life in the services, if you think it will help you grow, then I think you will make peace with more attempts.
Okay, so sir, can you tell us the newspaper which you have followed?
Hindu and Indian Express.
So both?
Usually I used to read the Hindu. When I would find time, I would read the Indian Express as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? No?
Please. Sorry, you're not audible.
Sir, I'm not comfortable with mic.
And you're not comfortable with mic?
Yeah.
आप यहाँ के पूछ लो यार, what else can I say?
सर मुझे खुद का आवाज़ सुनाई देता है फिर.
क्या? अच्छा भाई, okay.
Sir, for optional, PSIR only. Sir, see, this is the problem.
Why don't you write it down? We'll take other questions, then you can pass the written.
Yeah, okay. How many divisions for PSIR option would be sufficient to attain the marks we want to get? Like around 300, 320?
Yeah, so I'll answer in context of the notes that you mentioned. Try revising them at least twice or thrice.
हो जाएगा इतने में?
We are, as long as you are trying to open, as long as you're open to it. Matlab, you'll have to find your comfort zone.
Sir, I saw model answers. Right. Sir, they were very factual. Okay.
That is, again, what I'm saying is there is no one right way to do it. You can keep revising them n number of times. There's no limit to how many times you can revise it. The best way to check if you've arrived or not is once you've, let's say, done your revision twice or thrice, then you can take the model test. If you get the requisite amount of marks, you've arrived. You're killing it.
Sir, how many times worked for you?
3 times. I did 3 times.
In all the attempts?
I was pretty lazy like that, yes.
Yeah.
Sir, for CSAT, what is the problem? Is it difficulty or practice?
Well, it can be both. For instance, earlier what would happen is that they had more of comprehension. The standard of comprehension was lesser. Maths was also relatively easier, and there were a lot of logical and reasoning questions. Now what they've done is they're cutting down on the comprehension questions and the logical and reasoning ones. So they use more maths and very high level of comprehension. So it is a bit of both actually. You will have to work hard as well as practice.
Sir, if you were to have given this last prelim, how you would have approached it?
I actually would have I would have just gone there with an open mind actually. I would have tried to do every question on its merit instead of being too invested in what would happen if I don't clear and all that.
Sir, what would be your reaction?
I would have been shell shocked. Yeah, but then that is the whole game, right? UPSC is going to shock you. So if you are anticipating shock, it will not be that bad, right? So if you go in there thinking that you will be knowing the answers, then you will be shocked. If you've been shocked before, then you will not be shocked, right? And you go in there anticipating that, okay, whatever happens, If it's easy or tough or shocking, I am going to deal with it with a certain amount of equanimity. Right? Do every question on its merit.
Sir, today in the morning a teacher suggested me Lakshmikant is the worst book ever.
But to each his own, right? Like I said, there's no one right way to do it.
Sir, that is what making me confused.
But it worked for me. It might have not have worked for that teacher.
But sir, you didn't give last prelims, na?
Yeah, but okay. This is not how it works.
Would you suggest some alternative for that?
No, I wouldn't. I didn't, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Okay. Time management as in while writing the answers or generally preparing? Throughout the journey, when you're preparing for, I think you'll have to find that balance. First of all, it's most important that you do things that are exciting to you. So for instance, you have to finish the syllabus, that's a given. But what you can do is you can dedicate half of your day to GS and the remaining half to optionals. Naturally, it depends, right? If you're going for an 8 to 10 hour study plan and you're doing it very regularly, you can give equal amounts of time to GS and optional. Once you've finished your optional, naturally GS can take more time. Once you're done with your optional. That's okay. You can spread it out over a वही मैंने सबसे पहले यही बात कही कि इस एग्जाम में कभी भी आप इनफ की फीलिंग के साथ जाना संभव नहीं है. इट इज़ नेवर पॉसिबल टू फील कि आपने सब कुछ कर लिया है, क्योंकि हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ रह ही जाएगा. तो जितना आराम से हो जाए मज़ा करते हुए उतना करिए. बाकी जस्ट गो देयर, ट्रस्ट योरसेल्फ एंड हैव फन एंड होपफुली सब अच्छा ही होगा. थैंक यू.
Good afternoon, sir.
Right. Where are you? Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, you have written PSI here.
Yes.
So my question is, sir, while writing PSI here, it is to be said that you quote some philosopher thinkers in your answer. From your side, how it is beneficial?
No, see, it is important to quote philosophers and thinkers because that shows that you know their viewpoint about things, right? You have done the classics. You have read the standard theory on this on that particular topic. Having said that, I don't think you should overdo it. If you go ahead and quote 6 philosophers in a question, or don't quote any philosopher at all, it will not matter. What is going to matter more is what have you interpreted from the same. So once you're going to give your analysis on a subject, how do you go about it? You say na ki this particular philosopher has said this. His criticism comes from this philosopher, but I would like to say that this is the answer. This is what I have learned from it, right? So in order to arrive at what you have understood, you need to stand on the crutches of people who have worked all their lives towards the betterment of their discipline, right? So that is the, having said that, if you don't mention a philosopher at all also in a couple of answers, it's okay. Provided you probe it from a very logical standpoint, you critically analyze. But once what you'll see is ki to critically analyze a topic or a question, you will invariably have to mention a philosopher if you read about it. So it's the number of philosophers don't matter, but mentioning philosophers helps. It shows that you have read the people who've really worked on that particular topic. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, as you cover all the aspects of preparation, as you already covered the all aspects of preparation, sir, my question is, as you are so much composed, calm, can you please give some personality traits which should we inculcate in ourselves? Because at this stage we are like the river at young stage. So how we
well, what you can do is, like I said, don't let the exam be bigger than it is. Focus on a lot of self-growth. Apart from that, what you can really do is, I think, invest in good books and movies. I think that will really help you grow. And I think everybody has his own journey, I think, to take. So But there are certain values that you can keep working on. Say for instance, equanimity is my personal favorite. So that you're not too much influenced by anything in a good way or a bad way. You take everything with a pinch of salt. You're able to look at things from a certain vantage. It will come to you, it's okay. I think it's not a big deal.
So the problem is कि हम किसी को भी देखते हैं तो we are influenced by this perspective. हमारा perspective अभी बड़ा नहीं हुआ, मतलब broad नहीं हुआ. तो उसके लिए मतलब we should read multiple sources or what?
Yes. मतलब you should read multiple sources. I think that's the best way. And also do not arrive at judgments too quickly. Do not judge anything. I would think if there's one thing I would like to say is do not judge anything and be a little humble. That will help you grow, because once you believe that knowledge can come to you from all sources, you are always willing to learn new things, and I think that will help in a lot of personality building. All that I've said is what I have experienced or what I feel right. You don't have to necessarily agree with it, right? But what you should at least do is think about it. Then you can choose to accept it or refuse it. Thank you.
Sir, once, sir, I want to congratulate you as you are from Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College. Shahid Bhagat Singh College. Yeah. I'm also from that college, okay, so great, I think there is a connection. Thank you. Not really connection, but I want to congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sir, what are your sources for PSIR optional?
PSIR optional एक तो शुभ्रा रंजन मैम के जो notes हैं, you should refer to that. I think it's pretty exhaustive. Then उसके अलावा थोड़ा सा अपने answers को और exclusive करने के लिए, अपने answers को exclusive करने के लिए what you can do is you can हर एक topic का, for instance if you're talking about Western political thought, तो कुछ standard books हैं, कुछ लोग गौबा पढ़ते हैं, ओपी गौबा, then there's Brian R. Nelson, तो उन books को refer कर सकते हैं आप. What will happen is कि syllabus आपका उन notes के through complete हो जाएगा और books से आपको थोड़ी exclusivity मिल पाएगी. आप कुछ ऐसा लिख पाएंगे जो everybody reading those notes has not done. As far as an exhaustive book list is concerned, I think I'll put it up in some time for everybody to access. वैसे बहुत ज़्यादा books पे rely करने की आवश्यकता नहीं है. कुछ एक particular topic that you feel that has not been dealt in a proper manner. Right. What you need to really do is spend time with a topic. आपने जैसे उस note से पढ़ लिया, फिर आपने उसको Google कर लिया एक दो sources से. Then you have your own understanding of the topic. तो material वही है, but आपने उसको कैसे समझा है will actually matter at the end of the day. Right. आप उसको और कितने सारे political science के concept से जोड़ के देख पा रहे हैं. तो वो आप जैसे आंसर राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस करेंगे या द मोर टाइम और या फिर और वेरिड सोर्सेज से थोड़ा थोड़ा पढ़ेंगे, आई थिंक इट विल कम टू यू. इट ऑब्वियसली मल्टीप्लिसिटी ऑफ सोर्सेज रखने से बेटर है कि एक सोर्स को पढ़ें, अच्छे से पढ़ें, बार बार पढ़ें. दैट इज समथिंग आई वुड लाइक टू रेकमेंड.
I have completed optional and GS class. So what would be my strategy for 1 year?
सॉरी, आपने ऑप्शनल और GS की क्लासेस खत्म कर ली हैं, राइट? सॉरी, एक साल में आपको क्या करना चाहिए अब? What is he saying?
Sir, I have completed optional and GS class. So I have 1 year for upcoming examination. So what would be my strategy? How I complete optional notes for?
तो ऑप्शनल नोट्स आपने ऑलरेडी खत्म कर लिए हैं, लाइक
yes, sir, I have completed.
तो जो ऑप्शनल के कुछ सर्टेन बुक्स हैं, आप फिर प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन सबसे पहले सॉल्व करिए. आप प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस को देखिए कितने अच्छे से आंसर कर पा रहे हैं, और उसके बाद आप दूसरे अच्छे सोर्सेज जो स्टैंडर्ड रेफरेंस बुक्स हैं जो BA या MA में पढ़ाई जाती हैं, उनसे आप हर एक टॉपिक. द गुड थिंग अबाउट ऑप्शनल इज देयर आर ओनली सो मेनी क्वेश्चंस दैट कैन बी आस्क्ड. ठीक है, अगर प्लेटो से क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाएंगे तो उनका हिज थ्योरी ऑफ एजुकेशन, हिज थ्योरी ऑफ फिलोसोफर किंग, है ना, या फिर एरिस्टोटल्स थ्योरी ऑफ वर्च्यू, देयर आर ओनली सो मेनी क्वेश्चंस दैट कैन बी आस्क्ड इन दीज टॉपिक्स. तो आप उन सारे क्वेश्चंस को लिख लीजिए and you can start answering them. You can also read Brian R. Nelson या इस प्रकार की अच्छी standard books. For instance, IR में Globalization of World Politics by Bailey Smith Havens है, उनको पढ़ के आप इन्हीं आंसर्स को एक अच्छा स्टैंडर्ड आंसर बना लीजिए एंड कीप रिविजिटिंग इट, दैट इज ऑल.
Sir, when I go to the write the mock, I write in I only have content for 50-60 word, but I couldn't complete the paper.
So that is a skill that you'll have to pick up. There's a proper an optional ka paper, at least for PSIR, you have to write it in paragraph form. Do not write it in pointers because you're writing an academic paper. So you will have to introduce the subject. आप अगर आपको कंटेंट कम पड़ रहा है, दैट इज प्रॉब्ली बिकॉज यू आर जस्ट राइटिंग द बॉडी ऑफ द आंसर. इंट्रोड्यूस द सब्जेक्ट फर्स्ट. इंट्रोड्यूस, फॉर इंस्टेंस इफ यू आर राइटिंग अबाउट जॉन रॉल्स, पहले आप जस्टिस के बारे में लिखिए. व्हाई इज जस्टिस सच एन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग, व्हाई शुड जस्टिस बी देयर. Then you write about the Rawlsian conception of justice, you write about his differential principle, you talk about his libertarian principle. फिर आपने उनका principle लिख दिया, फिर then write about his critics, write about the communitarian critics. For instance, Alasdair MacIntyre हैं, Charles Taylor हैं, इनके बारे में लिखिए. Then you can conclude, you will have enough material.
Okay sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste sir, many congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Sir, is it necessary to watch Rajya Sabha TV and write daily answers, daily assignments, or?
I think the efficacy of Rajya Sabha TV lies in the fact that it provides you a varied source for knowledge enrichment. That is the extent of it. For instance, I used to watch एक Business Matters करके के भरत कुमार का YouTube पे, which is really good. So there are times when you don't want to study, you do not want to consume unnecessary content on the internet either. तब आप देख सकते हैं, कुछ भी ऐसा hard and fast नहीं है कि आप ये नहीं करेंगे तो नहीं निकलेगा. राज्यसभा टीवी का आई थिंक अगेन रोल वही है कि वहाँ पे क्योंकि एक्सपर्ट्स बैठते हैं, 4 स्कॉलर्स एक्सपर्ट्स बैठेंगे तो आपको किसी भी इशू को डाइवर्स पर्सपेक्टिव से समझने में आसानी होगी. दैट इज द मेन पर्पस ऑफ इट. सो इफ यू डू इट वेल एंड गुड, इफ यू डोंट लेट इट बॉदर यू टू मच.
Sir, from today onwards, is it necessary to write answers or daily assignments?
The answer writing, I think, is the most important part of the exam. The more you write, the more you'll realize that you can write better, right? So it's a constant progress chart. So the more you write, the more you'll realize you write better. What will happen is if you write just before the exams, there's no scope for improvement, right? You will go in with that level of answer writing only. So if you write now, you will be able to identify your shortcomings, you will be able to rectify them in a timely manner. That is the advantage of answer writing. Also, it's really important to be able to finish all the questions and to be able to do justice to all of them. So you can do justice to all of them only if you're in the habit of writing long answers, right? एक सेकंड है. हाँ, बेसिक्स बनाना चाहिए फिर. हाँ. मतलब कौन सी बुक्स पढ़नी चाहिए? बहुत सारी हैं. जैसे फॉर इंस्टेंस श्रीराम सर के नोट्स हैं ऑन इकोनॉमी विच आर रियली गुड एंड आई थिंक दे आर प्रीटी एग्जॉस्टिव ऑल्सो. तो आप वो पढ़ लीजिए, उसके बाद आपको कुछ पढ़ने की और आवश्यकता नहीं होनी चाहिए मेरे ख्याल से इकोनॉमी में एटलीस्ट. यस. हाँ. I had a background in optional, so for me, I did BA honors and masters in political science. So for me, it was never a big worry, frankly. Ideally speaking, you should be able to finish your syllabus before you sit for your pre. आखिरी 2-3 महीने you will be dedicatedly giving to pre, right? Because you will be doing a lot of mock tests and you get everybody gets a little tensed around the pre time. So 2-3 months you will be giving to pre in a dedicated manner. So right 2 months before prelims, at least आपने if you have finished the syllabus at least, that will really help. Then you can straight away get into answer writing after your prelims, right? And if you have been doing answer writing also simultaneously, then nothing like it. It's great.
Hello. Sir, congratulations for your great success.
Thank you.
And sir, for essay paper, so how did you approach for essay paper?
Sorry?
For essay paper, how did you approach?
Essay paper में how do I approach? Like I said, जो अनुदीप दुरी शेट्टी सर के notes हैं, उनने सबसे पहले किसी भी ऐसे
Sir, you are telling that notes or some books?
book भी उनकी I think आ गई है. I'm not sure about it, but I think 15-20 पेज का एक पतला सा PDF was there that I had lying with me. उसके anyway, apart from that, what you really need is you need an introduction, body and conclusion. In the introduction part, I usually either use a historical example, a real life example, or a story to introduce the topic. In the body, I try to look at it from different angles. How does it impact different stakeholders? And then finally I sum it up in the conclusion. Usually अगर मैं किसी story से start करता हूँ तो उसी story से conclusion में जैसे end करता हूँ.
Sir, does previous year question essay help?
Essay के लिए?
Yes.
हाँ बिल्कुल. For instance, for the past, now the questions are all philosophical in nature. All of them are absolutely philosophical in nature. So if you look at previous years, आपको idea हो जाएगा. What are the kind of questions you are expecting? उनको आप practice करके जा सकते हैं. There is very difficult. It's very rare that you are able to anticipate कि essay में पूछेंगे क्या. Since all of them are philosophical quotes, but at least now you know कि आपको philosophical essays कैसे approach करने हैं. Once you have that, you will be in a better position.
And for ethics case study, how did you handle? What is the source case study?
Say for ethics, the book by Lexicon, I believe, and then I did class notes also. I had, but I think Lexicon is pretty exhaustive. आप वो उन concepts को पढ़ के बस apply करना शुरू कर दीजिए.
Sir, I have only one attempt, that is next attempt. So what could be the approach?
Well, good thing is if you look at the bright side, I would think at it कि after your attempts are exhausted, then at least you're free. So I think you've given it all, you've done it everything, then you should really be carefree about it. If you give it too much importance, it's stressful. Why do you want that added pressure?
And how do I do that value addition? What could be the source of value addition?
Like I said, do a lot of side reading so that you stand out, right? So I mean, the examiners are reading copies day in and day out, right? So if you keep giving the same homogeneous material that everybody else is writing, or you're just factual about it, for instance, and you have to realize what your strengths and weaknesses are. It's a very individual game. For instance, I always knew that my strength lay in my writing skills. तो मैं अपना introduction और conclusion बहुत अच्छा लिखता था. तो अगर उसमें body में थोड़ा data deficient भी होता था, तो it makes up for it. आपको आपकी strength क्या है? आपको लगता है कि you're not able to do justice to introduction conclusion, then you make it very value rich, that they're forced to give you marks. That you can do with all the material that is available in the market and on the net. There's more than enough material.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Anubhav, for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
And hope all of you have benefited and will do something about it. And next year, आप लोगों में से भी एक रैंकर निकल के आए. एक नहीं 10-5. Okay, thank you for coming, and let's have a huge round of applause for Anubhav.
Thank you.